In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, please be seated. Good evening. I bring you greetings from the Cathedral Center clergy and staff. And you must be wondering who I am, where I am, or what I do. My name is Yane Kim, Yane Esther Kim Griffith, to be exact. I have been serving at the parish of St. Athanasius at the Cathedral Center of St. Paul since 2015. Not many people understand when I say Lent and Holy Week is my favorite season in the church. But I have a feeling many of you here understand what I mean. It is a blessing, and I am honored to be here at St. Thomas with faithful people like you during this time of the year that I love so much. I came to Cambridge, Massachusetts to go to seminary in 2011 from South Korea. I grew up as an Anglican priest's daughter, granddaughter, and great-granddaughter, which makes me a fourth-generation Anglican priest. And church was my school, it was my playground, and it was my family. And in the middle of this all was my grandmother, whose father, husband, and only son were Anglican priests. She was 95 years old when I left for seminary. And when I went to go see her right before I left, she did not recognize me. But somehow, I knew she would have been so happy to see me ordained, and that she would be so happy to see me standing here today. And I would like to talk to you about the love and the transformation that happened through my grandmother's death. Right after I came to Cambridge, my grandmother passed away. I was shook more than I realized. I was in my studio apartment when I got the call from my sister around midnight. And before I knew it, I sent an all-school email asking for prayers. I'm telling you this because that's very unlikely of me to send out an email of personal nature. And I immediately regretted it, which Nick, then my friend, and now my husband, totally agreed that it was not something I would do under normal circumstances. I got a call from the dean asking if I needed to go home. And if I do go home, the school will pay for my flight. I said no, since I already saw her before I came, and the semester has just started. And much later, I learned that Nick, my husband, actually called all of my classmates and raised money for the flight and asked the dean to reach out to me. And when I decided not to go, he sent me an email inviting me to his church if I needed a place to go on Sunday. It's funny because Nick and I weren't that close at the time, but he knew me and he understood my feelings. The shame of sending out those emails, the embarrassment or hesitation of asking to go home. And he offered help without letting me know or trying to fix my problem. Being there for one another in times of trouble is harder than it appears on the surface. We often define a friend as someone who will be there for us when we need them. But what does that really mean? Our first instinct when something terrible is happening is to run away. Car accident, fire, somebody really suffering. To get out of there before the terrible thing can happen to us as well. And if we do make the decision that we're not going to run away, but instead stay with our friend who is suffering, our next instinct will be to try to fix it. You'll say, no, look, do this, change this, fix this, and you'll be fine. It takes a very disciplined and patient sort of love to truly be there for someone in crisis without trying to fix it. And it is exactly that sort of love that we can often look back on and recognize in God's response to our own dark moments. God doesn't abandon us, but neither does God very often step in and fix us or our circumstances. God stands with us with the bravest and strongest love of all, the love that undergoes suffering with us rather than sparing us or God's self. Holy Week is the test of whether we can summon that sort of love within ourselves for Jesus. The Greek visitors to Jerusalem for the Passover in our gospel today say something that has the potential to convict us in our relationship with Jesus. They come to Philip, one of the disciples, and say to him, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." And we have to ask ourselves, is that statement true of us? Do we wish to see Jesus? Do we really wish to see him completely in his fullness, in his moments of glory and his moments of pain? Some of us find ourselves drawn to Jesus most in his times of humanness and trial. We love him most when we see him showing his courage in his moments of human vulnerability. And others find themselves drawn to Jesus in his moments of glory and power. They love the heavenly Christ, the cosmic Word who undergirds creation and subdues the raging waters and scatters miracles from his fingertips. Jesus is all of these things. He is fully human and fully divine. And we see both sides of his nature in this very gospel story today. You can find which part of Jesus you relate to and which part seems foreign to you by how you react to his words in different parts of the text. When do you love Jesus more? When he says, "Now my soul is troubled"? Then you're probably in closer relationship to the human side of Jesus. Or do you find yourself thrilling when he says, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified"? Then you're probably in a closer relationship to the divine side of Jesus. There's absolutely nothing wrong with finding yourself touched and moved to see Jesus as a man or Christ as God, one more than the other. But it is important for us to reach for understanding and encounter with the opposite side of Jesus, the part we don't understand and identify with as much. And that is because we want the words of the Greeks in Jerusalem to be true of us. We want to be able to say, "We wish to see Jesus." Jesus in his fullness, Jesus in his complexity, Jesus as all he came to us to be and to do. And what is Holy Week? Other than Jesus letting go of all control of his life and his power. We know he could have swept away all resistance to his rule, saved himself from trial and execution without breaking a sweat. But he let go. He abandoned himself, not to hopelessness and death, but to hope and faith. He let go and believed that his love for us was worth sacrificing everything. And the love of his Father would call him back to life on the third day. And we cannot force honesty or courage on ourselves or others. We cannot force ourselves to be faithful to Jesus, to ourselves or to our friends. All we can do is to follow Jesus' example and let go. And let go into what? Into the one whose every human cell and every divine power was filled with one purpose: to love us. So let us ask, we wish to see Jesus. Amen.